in our meeting tonight is now open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Karen from California, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for those wonderful readings and the music and everything. A citation in the lesson this week reminded me of an experience my children had while in elementary school. There was a seemingly very contagious condition going around school called head lice. I had never heard of it before, but was told that it just jumps from one head to another very easily. A message went out to all the parents, alerting us to this fact and to be sure to check our children's head on a daily basis. If we saw something, we were to inform the school and then follow the procedures recommended. Being raised in Christian Science and raising our children in the same way, I did not start looking at our children's head. I just knew they were children of God and that nothing could touch them but God. My daughter had a very good friend that lived around the corner from us and was at her house a lot, playing. One day, her friend and mom came to the house with a bag of shampoo and other items, telling me her daughter and mine had been exchanging hairbrushes and that her daughter had the condition. I thanked her for her concern, but assured her I would not be needing those products. I immediately called my practitioner asking for her support, and she referred me to the citation from Science and Health that is in this week's lesson. Quote, "The exterminator of error is the great truth that God, good, is the only mind, and that the supposititious opposite of infinite mind, called devil or evil, is not mind, is not truth, but error, without intelligence or reality." Unquote. I remember thinking about Mrs. Eddy's use of the word exterminator. I looked it up in the dictionary, and it meant to utterly destroy or eradicate. This gave me confidence that the truth I and the practitioner were knowing would take care of the situation. I had no fear that the children could be susceptible of getting something God knew nothing about and would never allow his children to have. I also knew all the children at the school were children of God, and so as safe as God. It wasn't long before the situation at school just faded out, and there was no more discussion about it. I was so grateful for God's protection, for our children were never touched by this lie. Since finding Plainfield Church, I have been learning through working with my Plainfield practitioner, listening to the roundtable discussions, and reading articles on our website, how to handle false suggestions that come up. I understand now that I am not praying to heal a sick body or any situation with my thinking. My prayer is to let go of false fears, doubts, and foolish thinking, that is the human mind, and let it be filled with the truth, or what God knows about whatever the situation is calling itself for the moment. This Christ knowing, or having the mind of Christ, is what does what we call healing. For it reveals that everything is already perfect as God made it and has never been anything else. My only responsibility is to clear thought, so it becomes the channel through which the Spirit of God operates. But the power belongs to God. What a change this has brought in working for myself and the world. I am so grateful to the teachings of Christ Jesus and to Mary Baker Eddy for their sacrifices to bring this truth about God and man to the world. They demonstrated, as have tens of thousands after them, that the Savior of the world is the truth about God and man's inseparable oneness with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. Yesterday afternoon, I was working on the next issue of the newsletter. The idea seemed to appear very quickly, but when I started to print them, it seemed everything went wrong. The final blow appeared when I was all about to it was all correctly displayed, and I was about to save it, and for some unknown reason, my double columns just disappeared, and in place it was a single column. I was glad to quit. I spoke to the practitioner early this morning, and I told her about the problem, and she gave me a number of truths to work with. So while I was doing my lesson, I did review them. When I opened the computer this afternoon, all was in order. Where single columns were present yesterday, the double columns appeared today. I now have 2 pages in perfect order. Thank you, Shepherd.
And thank you as well. Thank you. Jeremy.
Good evening, everyone. I am very grateful for all that I have learned during my time in Plainfield and for how it has made such a dramatic difference in my life. I had a long drive recently, and I have several blessings I would like to give gratitude for. First, during the drive, I had the feeling to take a different route than normally would seem like a very poor choice. The moment I got that feeling, the thought came that I should check the GPS to see if that way had too much traffic. But then I realized that if my spiritual sense is directing me in this manner, then I need to trust that God is guiding and guarding me. So, after praying a second time, to make sure it still felt right, I took that way, and it was nearly completely clear of traffic the whole way. The second blessing I am grateful for is that I felt very relaxed while on the road. I was able to drive without feeling in a rush and to just take the time to thank God for all the blessings that I have gained and the purpose I feel in Plainfield. For most of my life, I always felt behind schedule and not where I was supposed to be. The lessons I have learned here have helped me to let much of that go. Finally, I'm so grateful to know that God has shown me my right place. It is clear this place is not geographically dependent, but as I am realizing more and more, it's solely dependent on my closeness to God and my desire to be obedient to Him. This church and all it offers freely to the world, combined with practitioner support, provides all I need to maintain that close connection. All this has let me know just how much I've been changed and healed by Christian Science. I'm so grateful to be a member of this church and to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne from Florida, go ahead.
Thank you. I recall the wonderful healing I had several years ago. I was trimming rhododendron bushes in the front yard when I turned suddenly and severely stabbed my right eye with a thick branch. I literally saw stars and nothing else. I was quite frightened and immediately phoned a Plainfield practitioner for help. She calmed me by telling me how much God loved me and assured me that there were no accidents in mind, God, and that God was governing me right now. She continued to pray for me, and within a few hours I was able to open my eye without any pain or blurriness. It was completely healed. I'm grateful for all the healings I have had in Christian Science, and there have been many. But most of all, I'm grateful to have learned that God is not to be feared, but is a loving God and has only good for us all, always. And as we sang in our hymn tonight, God is known in loving kindness. I'm grateful for all the practitioner help that I've received here in Plainfield Church and to be a member here. And thank you for those readings tonight and the beautiful music we are blessed to have. Thank you.
Thank you.
660530.
Someone's calling from area code 660 530. Please announce yourself and then go ahead with your testimony.
Jody from Missouri. I'd like to express my appreciation for a most wonderful healing of a toothache that overcame fear, anger, and self-righteousness in order to be achieved. I am very grateful. Thank you, Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Lady, for those excellent readings. Tonight, I'd like to express my gratitude for the office of the practitioner. Recently, a dear loved one has been experiencing health challenges and ended up hospitalized for several weeks. Whenever I reached out to my Plainfield practitioner for support, she never failed to provide helpful inspiration on how to pray for this family member. The loving support she provided was nothing short of amazing. My family member is now back home and is quickly on the mend. I'm so thankful for the practitioner's support, this amazing church, and to God for the gift of Christian Science. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Susan
Massachusetts.
from Massachusetts. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for the wonderful reading. I'm so grateful for the Plainfield Independent Church, for all the dedicated and sincere work that goes on here. I can attest that the unselfish prayers are reaching others. The teaching from the roundtables changed my mind about Christian Science and changed my life. I'm grateful to be learning so many lessons that I am beginning to be able to practice in my life. Every day there are new opportunities to apply Christian Science, for that is the only way it becomes real. I am very grateful for the Plainfield practitioners and for the very loving support they unselfishly provide. I am grateful to God, Christ Jesus, and Mary Baker Eddy for Christian Science. Thank you so much for the readings and testimonies.
Thank you. Dave from Florida. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. When I was in high school, I was on the swim team, and one night at practice, I was swimming in a lane toward the starting blocks. One of my teammates did not see me there and dove in off the starting block. We hit head to head. I remember guys jumping in and helping me out of the pool, and I was a little out of it. When I got home that night, my head was still hurting. My parents had me call the practitioner in this church. I don't remember what she gave me to work with, but I do remember that within an hour, I was able to let her know that I was feeling fine, and also there were no after effects. I'm very grateful for all of the healings I've had in Christian Science and for the work of the practitioners in this church. It does work, heal, when lived and applied the way Mrs. Eddy intended it, and that is what we are doing here. And thank you very much for those readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening, and I am grateful for our meeting tonight. I am also grateful for a lovely little healing I had recently when I cut my finger while working in the garden. It wasn't a big cut, and I didn't give it much thought, although it was bleeding a little bit. After 3 days, it did not heal, and it became quite sore, etc. That brought me up short, and I immediately went to prayer with humility. I had ignored something that looked small and allowed for something bigger to disrupt my spiritual space as well as my body. That same day, the cut closed up and stopped hurting. And by the next day, there was just a tiny little line where it had been. Lesson learned: to always pay attention and check what I am being conscious of. Pray without ceasing. Mrs. Eddy says in Precepts 4, quote, prayer is the practice of presence and power of God, end quote. Thank you for those wonderful readings and the beautiful music. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid from California, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for all your great efforts over there and for the wonderful, absolutely wonderful website. I would like to express my gratitude for all the wonderful teachings of the science of the Christ, healing, and especially for the scientific statement of being. This morning I heard another beautiful prayer gathering that where the theme was the scientific statement of being, very wonderful. And I am giving most gratitude for that amazing, absolute statement of truth for the spiritual being. It has been such a blessing in my life. Everything, absolutely everything that I have tried to just have a wonderful experience with this scientific statement of being is been absolutely that, just wonderful for many decades. And it's one of the things that I'm very grateful that I learned when I started studying Christian Science. Just learn it and went with it, and then to go on to practice. And it's been such a blessing for raising up our children, for relationships, for just really everything. Especially was my support all the time when I was called to go the vegan way or plant-based way for compassion and love for animals, which I always loved. And that was really, I couldn't have done it without it. I know that. And it still today is all my all my nutriment is always from those spiritual truths. So very grateful, and thank you all guys for sharing in these prayers.
Thank you. Linda.
Good evening, and thank you for the readings tonight and the music before the service. I want to express my gratitude for all the deep practical teaching that is provided here through our classes. This last Sunday, the roundtable titled, Lord, Teach Us to Pray, helped me gain more peace and a greater sense of forgiveness. Part of the class was spent on the Lord's Prayer. One participant shared something she had heard to the effect that we should not be praying this prayer if we were carrying grudges. Some of the instructions from the teacher I took away, in my own words, were, we don't want to block, or paraphrasing, we don't want to block lines of communication with God by being unforgiving. The Bible tells us don't come to the altar unless you have forgiven others, including yourself. You cannot really have a relationship with God if you haven't done this. If we hold grudges, the fellowship with God is broken. If Jesus forgave on the cross, we must as well. And then finally, go home and get on your knees and forgive as you would be forgiven. When I got home later that day, I took time to look where I could do better, more forgiving, or face something maybe I hadn't let go. Because in the back of my mind, I thought, who wants to be cut off from God? Before coming here, for many years, I read many different books and tried practical tips to take steps to forgive. It was good to do this, and better than doing nothing. But I can say nothing compares to what I'm learning here and helping me truly forgive as Jesus taught us to do, and how he taught us to do. It has been regular support from my practitioner here at Plainfield that has been softening my heart and changing my negative thinking patterns, that is slowly breaking down walls in my life. I sat quietly that day and asked God to open my thought and heart to greater forgiveness. Before this, it had been more mechanical approach for me, like creating lists, but this time it was different. Gently but clearly, names came to thought, one at a time. Some I hadn't even thought about for many years. It felt like I was unpacking baggage. I've also heard people say it's like peeling layers of an onion. I felt such a lighter sense, a sense of release, and a little more freedom and peace, of which I'm very grateful. I thank God, our way-shower Christ Jesus, and our leader Mary Baker Eddy, and this faithful church.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
Recently, I talked to my practitioner about a lack of energy and feeling tired. So many people are accustomed to using coffee, tea, energy drinks to get going. The artificial energy the world seeks through stimulants of every kind was not what I was looking for. The idea of being dependent on something like that was not what I was looking for. My practitioner told me to read page 249 in Science and Health, where it states on line 6, "Let us feel the divine energy of spirit, bringing us into the newness of life and recognizing no mortal nor material power as able to destroy. Let us rejoice that we are subject to the divine powers that be. Such is the true science of being. Any other theory of life or God is delusive and mythological. As always, this is going to God as our source. God is our source of sustainable energy. And I'm so very grateful to my practitioner for this understanding, to God, Christian Science, and this church. And thank you for the inspiring reading."
Thank you. Pam from Virginia, go ahead.
Good evening. I am so grateful to my mother for having brought different members of our family into Christian Science by demonstrating and living this wonderful science daily. And now her grandchildren are living their lives with this incredible science. I cannot imagine living in these present times, the latter days, without the truths of Christian Science, the powerful truths of God and man and the universe. These truths help us to combat and destroy evil on a daily basis. I am also very grateful for the Plainfield Church, which has been an incredible blessing to myself and other members of my family. We have learned so much through the roundtable discussions, the Bible studies, and the powerful articles on Christian Science that are provided by the church website. The practitioners are always there to help and support you in working out your own salvation. Enough good things cannot be said about this church and its embracing the pure teachings of Christian Science by Mary Baker Eddy. Thank you, Day Day, for the wonderful readings tonight, and thank you for the beautiful music and all the testimonies we will hear this evening. Good evening.
Thank you. Lil.
Yes, thank you for those wonderful readings and the beautiful music. I had a recent proof of God's ever-present good. I went to my dentist with practitioner support for a checkup and cleaning and was told all was good. In a day or so, I noticed that a spot on my gum felt sore and I started to worry. Then I held in thought that good cannot be reversed and wouldn't accept it. I've learned here that if something is not good, it is not from God, and I don't have to have it. I realized in a day or so that all was normal. What a blessing from God. I'm grateful to God, Christ Jesus, Mrs. Eddy, and for practitioner support. Christian Science is a wonderful way of life. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Carol.
One thing we were taught here a long time ago was to pray before, during, and after we do anything. Over the weekend, my car's check tire pressure light came on, so I took it to my local tire store and asked them to check it. I prayed on the way there that nothing is hid that shall not be revealed, and that whatever was wrong would be easily found and fixed. They were able to take my car right away, and I prayed that God was in charge and that the workers would follow his direction. It turned out that one tire was a little low, but they inspected it carefully and didn't find anything wrong with it. And they didn't charge me anything. So when I prayed on the way home to seal the deal, I thank God for his care and for such a quick and inexpensive checkup. It was just the fact that they were able to take me right away. Every step of it was just really guided by God. It was the most wonderful experience. I'm very grateful and grateful for all that I'm learning here in this church, how to live Christian Science and how to use it practically during the day. Very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon.
Recently, I found this statement. It says, "Watch and pray daily that evil suggestions, in whatever guise, take no root in your thought nor bear fruit." Mary Baker Eddy. And I've really been working with that because I realize sometimes I'd think, oh, I'm tired, and I'd accept it. And that was not the truth. That was an evil suggestion. And I'm just so grateful for all the literature and teaching that I've received in this church, for all the healings, and that this is a worldwide church. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful for practitioner help, and thank you for the readings.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for those assuring truths about having faith in God daily in the readings. Mrs. Eddy on page 167 of Science and Health does say, only through radical reliance on truth can scientific healing power be realized. It sounds simple. It sounds like we've heard it many times. But I've come to know that years ago, what I used to do was to declare the truth, but somehow was holding still firmly on the lie that was tempting. Radical reliance is faith in the truth that we declare. So it's quite expedient to, after you've declared the truth, from time to time check if you're still holding on to the lie that you want to be rid of. This week, I heard that the director of the movie, the series Chosen, and I'm so impressed by his faith in all the steps that he's taken to produce those series. And he talked about a song called Faithful Now. Part of it says, I'm holding on to faith because I know you'll make a way. And I don't always understand, and I don't always get to see, but I will believe it. I will believe it because you make mountains move. You make giants fall. and you use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear, I will preach to my doubt, that you were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. It touched me, and it also reminded me of one of the verses from Samuel that I've heard it said in this church this way: hitherto has the Lord helped us, and hitherto he will. So let us be clear to pray, trust God, and keep gaining more conviction in his supremacy and his ability to destroy all ill from our thinking. So grateful for all the testimonies, the hymns, the music. Just grateful to God who assures us of ever presence and his love. Grateful for Mrs. Eddie and all that she did, and for all the workers gone before us who worked hard for us to have this truth that is so needed the world over today. So grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
Good evening, everyone. I'll read from our church website bulletin board. The first from California. For being here and giving so much that helps so many. And then Pennsylvania. Reading from We Knew Mary Baker Eddy. It's a book. Recently, we found this quote from a clergyman who had earlier been very hostile to Christian Science. Quote, no one is educated today who has not read and pondered the writings of Mary Baker Eddy, end quote. This was 1893, but it's certainly true today. It was a delightful surprise to find a bliss map reminiscence in the next chapter discussing Mrs. Eddy's place in both the Old and New Testaments of the Bible. And then Massachusetts. I am very grateful for the article, Fearlessly Meet the Claim by Edward A. Kimball. He writes, quote, if there is any resentment or hate in your heart, stay at home, pull down the blinds, don't wash your hands until you have cast it out, end quote. I've realized there is no time like the present to do this work. Why indulge in this type of thinking for a second longer? And then also Mary Baker Eddy writes in Miscellaneous Writings on page 118, quote, be of good cheer. The warfare with oneself is grand. It gives one plenty of employment, and the divine principle worketh with you, end quote. Thanks to Plainfield for providing the tools for doing this work. I am very grateful. And then California. Tomorrow morning is the Roundtable and Sunday lesson, live. It's like Christmas morning. You are appreciated. And then Florida. Thank you, Faith, Jared, and Bruce, for that beautiful rendition of the Deer's Cry in the service this morning. In California, when Faith started to sing the Deer's Cry, the tears ran down my cheeks. She and Jared and Bruce did such a beautiful job, and I could really feel the spirit in which it was sung. Thank you so much. I will enjoy listening to this one on our website, and I'm sure others will too. And then New Jersey, Jared, our organist, wrote the music for this song and did such a beautiful job. We are very grateful for him and for for Faith, who is our soloist. And then Massachusetts, I also had tears when this song came on. Thank you so much. I loved it. And this is from California. I am grateful to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent for your gracious sharing of the Christ in so many substantive ways. Thus, as per the words of a hymn, I know no life divided, O Lord of life, from thee. I love the many ways that this church provides that led me to a deeper understanding of science. I also love the practical, non-doctrinal ways to share that this church also acknowledges so that we can share to help illumine the Bible promises to others searching to feel the presence of God. As an example, it was my privilege to both receive and gift the little book about Lass, the border collie who seemed to be too lost to reclaim, and I have shared as well using the universal language of music. My humble gratitude for this church, your outreach, dedication, inspiration. Your work blesses to break the bonds of despair, and I thank you. And then another from California. Dear Plainfield, I want to thank you for your beautiful website and church services you live stream. I came across your church by accident. I was watching YouTube videos one day, and your Beware the Beast video popped up. I think that was a roundtable discussion. Anyway, she goes on, I thought it was an Iron Maiden music video, which is a heavy metal band, so I clicked on it. I was so surprised to see Christian Scientists talking about the beast. The video helped me so much, and I have been visiting your website and your YouTube channel ever since. I also love your Bible discussions and roundtables. She goes on to give a testimony, healing testimony. She has a son, I guess he's around 20 years old, who got involved with the sort of the violent protesting that was going on in Seattle. And she became very concerned, of course, for him. She called to get practitioner help and was knowing that there's only the one attraction to God, good, and that he couldn't be attracted, have a false attraction to get involved with this. And she said she was praying for the America's youth, that they have one mind, God's mind, pure and perfect. This was something I learned from one of your roundtables. Another prayer I learned because of your website was millennials are lambs of God, God's children, laying down in the truth. They are the spot where God shines through the youth, and they are one with God, not two. And so after a bit, she heard from her son again, who came to his senses and separated himself from that. And she was very, very grateful and very relieved and very grateful for that healing. This testimony is from Hawaii. Firstly, thank God, Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, and for you all coming to my rescue and navigating me in the right direction. I've been listening to What is God by Herbert Eustace, and am so moved with the truth that simple words are the most effective, and to pay close attention to the definition of each word that comes to mind or is prepared to leave my mouth. Yesterday, after a long day gardening, I experienced tightness in my chest, fatigue, and difficult breathing. The word bound came to mind in being bound by evil, constricting, restricting life. Then came the message that I could only be bound in God's loving care. He is responsible for every breath I take and could never impede it. Though tired, last night I clung to this message of being wrapped and comforted in spirit. This morning I am greatly improved and can go about caring for my father and also assisting my husband on our farm. I never really thought about the words I speak on a daily basis. Having worked for the president of a large local company, I spent many hours covering social fundraising events where I needed to make small talk for PR purposes. Most of the conversation was rote, and by night's end, I couldn't recall much detail. I am now on a new path today to be deliberate and considerate of each word and its scientific meaning. There is so much to learn, but every step forward is a joyous one. Complete healing is taking place. Spirit is at work, and I expect this for certain. Thank you for your loving work. And then another from California. Several weeks ago, I heard someone in the Plainfield Christian Science Independent Service speak about asking her grandchild about what makes a person beautiful. And out of the mouth of this small child came pure truth, as only seen through the eyes of a child. The question and response resonated in my thinking, as I have 5 grandchildren. I looked forward to asking each of them the same question. 2 Corinthians 4 tells us, "We look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal." This question, originally asked by Candy from Wisconsin to her grandchild, and then by a Plainfield practitioner to her grandchild, provided an opportunity to peer inside the evolving thinking of the child and to offer positive reinforcement and teaching, which we need to do in the roles of parent, grandparent, and Christian scientist as we live in the world, demonstrating the Christ idea through our example. I asked my 9-year-old the question of what he thought made someone beautiful. He responded, their looks, if they were happy, and if they loved other people. I took this opportunity to compliment him on his answer. We started talking about the happiness and loving part, and how these were the things that were not physical, like physical looks, but mental in your thinking. Since early July, I've been working with an article from the Plainfield website called Sight by A. Kroger, in which she says, quote, "Sight is no more dependent on matter than is honesty, kindness, love, mental qualities which we are free to express at will and to use as much and as often as we wish. The more we use these qualities, the more strength and vigor they gain in our thinking, and they are never weakened, impaired, or strained by constant use, but grow stronger thereby." End quote. Using this, I told him that those things like happiness and love were mental, and like honesty, kindness, and love would grow and become more and more a part of a person's life as they were used. If someday he married someone with those beautiful thoughts, and he also expressed these same beautiful thoughts, things would just grow better and better in their home. After this, he wanted to change his answer about physical looks, but I told him no. If we were talking about a future wife, he would need to be attracted to her, and these other unseen things would make her attractive to him so that he would know her inside beauty. It is always the unseen things that are most important. This won't be the last of my discussions with him, as I have 4 other grandchildren who will be asked the question, but I want to thank those who testified to God's presence and action in their lives at Wednesday services and Sunday roundtable discussions. What you give thanks for meets and inspires those of us who listen. Thank you for giving freely of your experiences. Thank you, practitioners and membership who watch over this church, which Mrs. Eddy defines in Science and Health as the structure of truth and love, page 583. Thank you for letting your light shine and attracting those of us who see the light to this church. And then, lastly, Missouri. A couple of months ago, I suffered from what appeared to be a very aggressive, painful, and tenacious illness, during which the fever was the most intense I have ever encountered. Living alone, so having no one to read to me, and with my own ability to focus severely diminished, I I was rescued by being able to listen to several of the recordings that the Plainfield members have read and recorded for the benefit of all. The two that were most helpful were Martha Wilcox's 2 articles entitled Body. As it seemed that there was a swelling or growth and malfunctioning in my digestive tract, such lines as these were most helpful and comforting. Quote, every reflected organ is a sound organ because it is the reflection of the one God mind, which is the one organ. This one infinite organ is never too large or too small and never functions imperfectly. It cannot be diseased because it is not matter, end quote. And this citation really struck me and was the turning point towards recovery when things seemed the most bleak. Quote, do not fear anything that your present body seems to be doing. Every cell, fiber, tissue, gland, organ, or muscle of the human body exists right now in the one mind as idea, and each idea is proclaiming, I am reflecting God. I am expressing God. Every cell and fiber of my being is expressing the sovereignty of God or proclaiming, I am. End quote. Though the healing wasn't instantaneous, as I recovered enough to pursue daily, and I vehemently refuted each and every ensuing claim of pain or seeming malfunction, both for myself and for all mankind, my full freedom came. With so much gratitude, I thank you all. Thank you very much for tonight's meeting. Those beautiful readings, our wonderful music, wonderful testimonies. It's so heartening to hear the readings about faith. I know once when I used to wonder, how could I get more faith? Because I didn't feel I had much. I learned to be aware of God's presence. And when something good happened, to realize that was